Hey everyone, welcome back to the District 3 podcast. My name is Irvin.
And I'm Miggs.
And Elena's not here with us today, so we're gonna miss her on this episode, but hopefully she'll make it in the next one. I'm glad that she's with her family and that she's having a good time. Miggs, how have you been? What have you been up to?
I've been doing all right, man. Concert season just wrapped up, but that was fun. Now I'm doing a lot of football. So either I'm traveling somewhere to go run some cameras, or if I'm doing it here at the U of A, I'm usually in charge of the pylon cameras. So it's real fun. I get to watch most of the game unless somebody gets tackled towards that pylon, then I have to go run over there, connect all the connections, and put it back up. So,
Is there still more football games to come up? I haven't kept up
I think there's officially 3 more Razorback football games.
I need to try to make it a one because I've never been to one before, and I've always wanted to. And I almost went this weekend, and someone even offered me free tickets. But I wasn't able to go.
Yeah, no, they've been horrible this season, man. They just sucked. Just things like there's certain things you're supposed to do before a certain half in order for you to have a chance to win, like score a touchdown. And they just haven't been doing that.
Shots fired by Miggs.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about today's episode. We have 2 people that have actually been on the podcast before. Joining us today, we have Gabriela Caceres and Dr. Alejandra Campos. Thank you both for joining us today.
Welcome again to the podcast.
Yes. And Dr. Campos, I know how to say your name, but I'm constant. Every time I read your name, there's something in my brain that tries to mix up the O's and the A's. But I'm glad I got it right this time.
Yes.
And I'm grateful for both of you being here. And the reason why I invited both of you here is because I think it's important for us to have, just a conversation about the election, of how we felt before the election happened on Tuesday and how we felt afterwards. And when I was trying to think of who are 2 people that, I consider a very powerful people in our community that have strong opinions and that care about their community and are outspoken, you were 2 of the people that I thought of for this conversation. So I'm grateful that we have you all here on a Saturday morning when you can be at home sleeping and resting because this weather is I don't want to get up till 12 p.m. probably on a Saturday. But I know that both of you understand the importance of having this conversation. And you both are Latina women, and there's also that factor. And Dr. Campos, I know that you've, done research on this, know quite a lot about just how Latinos are and I know this has been a big part of just your studies in general, too, as well. So I know that you all can contribute a lot. So just thank you all for being here. And I guess my first question for you all is, how are you feeling right now?
I can go first. First off, thank you both for having me again. Excited to be back on the show and have conversations that matter. And really, I know when you set this up, you really mentioned raw, unfiltered, and just chatting through what happened, what do we feel, what can we do. So I appreciate the work that you all are doing, and thank you for allowing me to have a voice and be part of the conversation. I think overall for me, just coming out of Tuesday night and going in Wednesday, pretending that it's just a normal day, one, it's challenging when you have all these things in your mind, knowing that at the end of the day, we do live in a red state. And to me, this election wasn't just about politics, it was about morals. And it was extremely disappointing for me. And I feel in general, I'm a very positive person. I'm always optimistic. And if I'm honest, I did not think the president to be that one had even a chance. Kamala was just so well-rounded in terms of her experience, the way she carried herself, who she is, what she's done, that her put against Trump, I couldn't see it. I did not see it. To me, it was shocking. And I know you and I kind of had a conversation prior to starting of all the signs that were there. But ultimately, I'm just disappointing in the morality of America. And when you double click into it, it's really driven by gaps in education. And at the end of the day, even if we don't like to admit this, money makes the world go round. And unfortunately, across all income levels, that was a main topic that people were afraid of. Inflation going up, they were afraid of not having the dollars in their pocket, of taxes, of just money, of money being tight, right? And I think those 2 are tied together, the education and the money. So as we dig into it, I think those are going to be the call to actions that I'm personally going to be really pushing and double clicking to how can I be part of the movement to help us not just be better educated as Latinas and Latinos, but how can we also influence everyone else to go and be more educated. And maybe won't see it in the next even 4 to 8 years, but let's ensure that we're planting those seeds so that this doesn't continue, because this isn't okay.
That makes so much sense. How do you feel, Dr. Campos?
I think leading up to the election, my parents would ask me, like, what are the possibilities of him winning his election? And I was quite transparent with them, and I let them know that it was there was a good chance that he would win his election. I couldn't tell them with 100% certainty that Kamala would win her campaign. I think initially when she took up the task of being the Democrat nominee, she did the best she could with the time that she had. She had 107 days. I think in the beginning, people were energized. People were really excited, particularly because it came out of the presidential debate, right? And a lot of people were concerned about Biden being the nominee. Yeah, older, right? and even Trump is older as well, but I think just you could see, right, that he looked tired and he looks like not all the way there. And so I think in the beginning people were really excited. But I think, seeing also the reaction of people, particularly people who have really strong stances on specific issues, and Kamala kind of not having specific outlines for those policy issues that people and concerns that people had towards the end of her campaign, it was hard for her to make up those numbers, I think. And turnout overall was quite low this election compared to 2020.
It's like 15 million less voters?
And so I think people were just, I think in part, yes, it is. It's definitely the economic story and people just being low information voters and just feeling like they have less money. And the easiest person to blame for that is the president. Kamala was tied to the last presidency. And so, of course, by way of that, she is also to blame, or people will blame her for those things. And so if you're a low information voter and you're concerned about having enough money to pay for your eggs and gas, then you're going to vote for whatever it is you think will help you have more money at the end of the day. And yeah, so I mean, I was feeling, I went to sleep early, honestly, on Tuesday because honestly, around 10, I kind of knew. I texted my sister and I was like, she's not going to win this election. And she was very don't say that. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, it's done. And that was before they had called it. I was like, I can't do this. So I just went to sleep. I was like, you know what? It's over. And I woke up and I saw the news and I was like, thank God I got my 10 hours of sleep because
10 hours? That's a good amount of sleep.
I'm jealous.
I was not going to let it, mess with my sleep, and I didn't. And for me, I think being at the university too, I was at the university in 2016, and I remember going to campus and feeling so upset. I was so sad. I was crying all day. I felt like nobody cared. I felt like nobody understood what I was going through and how much this was going to affect my life. And so for me, on that Wednesday, I wanted to be a source of comfort and show my students that I do care and I do understand the implications of another Trump presidency. And I've mentioned this before too. I'm very sure in my beliefs and what I think is good and right. And I feel I'm not intimidated by others on campus if they have I'm not intimidated by those conversations, and I'm not intimidated. I wouldn't let my students intimidate me if they wanted to. So I felt very sure going to campus. I was nervous because I was mostly nervous about having students just feel so overwhelmed that I wouldn't be able to offer them the support that they need. But I think it went well. And yeah, just been trying to answer questions and people are confused, right? People don't know why this happened. And I think just trying to be a resource and show that I slept 10 hours. It won't be okay. I can't say that it'll be okay, right? But just that we push forward, and there's community out there, and it just tapping into those networks and stuff like that.
That's so real what you said about going to sleep early, because I think I did that too. Like I was kind
I
of
did
like,
too.
but
Yeah.
but I'm not sure. Did we do the for the same reason, Miggs? Because I was kind of more like anxious about the election. I was like,
I just had work the next day, and I was like,
that's why.
who cares, right? Like,
That's for me. Like it was like 10 or 11, and I think they were about to call Pennsylvania. And when I saw it, I was like, and I like got off Twitter, and I'm like, I'm not gonna open my Facebook app, and I went to sleep, and I woke up like at 2 or 3 in the morning, but I was like, no, I'm not gonna look at my phone right now. I don't want to know at this time because I'm not gonna be able to sleep anymore.
To sleep, yep.
So I turned my phone, and then I went to sleep, and then I woke up, and I was like, how does the world feel right now? When I woke up, I was like, and I opened, Twitter and saw that Trump had been elected, and. As a U.S. citizen, if I would look at just myself, I wouldn't say super affected, like myself, right? But when I look at my family and when I look at some of my best friends.
But I think you should look at your wife.
That's why my family.
Yeah.
My family is like, that's the initial point of my concern.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's scary. And if I may, Alejandra, you made a comment on that we have, it's not okay, but I think at the end of the day, we have to move forward, right? Mm-hmm. So it's how do we start making sure this never happens again is how I think of it. And I'm sure that you're kind of there. It's like, it is what it is at this point. It can't be changed. We're going to have to accept it. And there's so much more that we can do, right? Even if it does entail him being the president for 4 years. Mm-hmm. But I totally understand. I feel like to an extent I kind of felt the same way. Wednesday morning, I'm like, oh, well, here we go. And you had mentioned that it's almost a feeling of numbness. Mm-hmm. And I agree. You feel so I have this fear of, oh gosh, this isn't going to be good. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like coupled with, well, we're going to have to just run through it. We're going to have to run through it.
Even that's hard, though. Even the run through it, because I have those conversations with my wife. And it's not easy for her to be, like, her mindset's not like, oh, we're going to be fine. We're going to run through it. Like, she can't even think that way. Her mindset is more like, are my family members going to be okay? Are my community members going to be okay? Yeah. And that concern can be debilitating for people to the point that they don't even want to get up from bed. They don't want to get involved in the community. So
do you think it was better this time? I think because you're used to it from the last time, that it wasn't like a complete slap in the face. It was just kind of like aw.
I think for some it was a complete slap in the face because at least in 2016 we had not had a Trump presidency before. I think people were alarmed by the rhetoric that he used. And I've mentioned this before, quite frankly, some people just don't care, right? That race and racism is a non-issue for a lot of folks. Mm-hmm. So even if he was using this language, 2016, let's say, and people didn't want to vote for perhaps a woman, and there's all these other variables.
He did fix his speech up a little bit about the racism. Now he include all Americans, all colors, blacks, Mexicans,
Yeah.
You do that way too well.
Yeah. And he went as far as saying illegal immigrants are taking Mexican jobs, stuff like that.
Well, he's pinning us.
And now he was, but he was including more people in it.
But even in that way, he's pinning us against each other.
Yeah, which, candidates have always done, right? Candidates have always, and that's reflective on the policy issues the policies that do end up passing, right? That's why support for certain policies that create the perceived image of a good immigrant or a deserving immigrant do better than other sweeping, amnesty policies, which no politician probably would support now. Because it's easier to create, right, this sense of I'm actually the deserving immigrant because I did it the right way. And you're the non-deserving immigrant because you're trying to, do these little other ways to get into the U.S. that are not right or we don't perceive as right. So I think it's always been an issue, and that and even since the 60s, right, and with the institutionalization of the word Hispanic and creating an immigrant versus an Hispanic and all of that too. So I don't know. I think it was a slap in the face though to your earlier point because so much had happened since then where he was convicted, and there was all these other, issues around him, and like these allegations, these sexual assault allegations, and all these other things that, like, the fact that people could kind of, to Gabby's earlier point, go around sort of, it is in some ways a matter of morals too, and the fact that people could kind of go around all of that and still vote for him, I think it is kind of like a slap in the face for a lot of people.
I mean, you said earlier that we have to figure out kind of like what we have to do to win. I think in order for you to do that, you kind of have to figure out what went wrong. And then, I mean, I think the Democratic Party moves slow, and part of it is because Schumer and Pelosi are up there being all old, doing all kinds of old moves, like people are sick of that shit. Anyway, but I mean, you were slow. First of all, you said the Biden had this. Biden is he's so smart. You should see him in meetings. He's so there. And then you had this debate because you chose Biden as your boy, And then what happens in the debate? Now everybody's like, oh shit, fucking panic button. Who do we get? We have nobody. And then they put Camilla. Camilla didn't even win the last time around. She didn't make it to fucking third, fourth, place. She lost it.
Kamala? Yes.
Yeah. So she lost that thing. And all of a sudden, you're just like, okay, this is who you're going to love. And then, I mean, I think it takes time to, like, get to know somebody, time to like somebody. I mean, usually you have 10 candidates that you choose for your party, and then they all battle it out, and then your favorite one goes on. We didn't have that. We just had somebody that wasn't Joe Biden.
And I think what Dr. Campos said about her having 107 days, like, for her, what she was able to accomplish in those 107 days was
I mean, at first it was exciting.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
State of Georgia, who do you take? Yeah.
I don't know about that. But even that's a flaw too, because I feel like adding a lot of celebrities, the normal voter is like, these celebrities. I'm not gonna point towards Beyonce or like Megan Thee Stallion or anything. Like a lot of people are pointing at them because I just feel like that's kind of like sexist and stuff. But I do feel that the over celebrity hype to the campaign probably didn't help that much.
I mean, there was a lot of celebrities who endorsed Trump as well. I mean, I think
that Kid Rock endorsement, I feel like, doesn't do a lot though.
Yeah, but like a lot of TikTok influencers also endorsed Trump. Like
That's
Bryce
true.
Hall endorsed him. That guy that like does boxing now, Jake Paul. And the thing is, and I saw this online. I think it's true, right? Like people are fantasized by Trump because he just is so unfiltered. And I think people are, it's not that they even want him to be the candidate. They want to be like him. They want to be unfiltered, like the Bryce Hall, like the Jake, right? Like Jake Paul has done like a ton of like atrocious things. Yeah. Yet he still has a large platform and people want his lifestyle. They want to be like, an influencer with money, and like they just do and say whatever they want with no consequence. And I think people kind of want that lifestyle too, right? And Trump kind of embodies that as well. And that's why these influencers also, I think, and other celebrities who are very unfiltered endorsed him as a candidate because they're like, hell yeah, I want to say whatever I want to say, and I don't want to be canceled, and I don't want, to be like, So I think,
that's so scary. Like, that is so scary. You are 100% correct, and that scares the shit out of me.
Because what can people get away with now?
Exactly. So to her point, and you covered it so perfectly, since his last stint in the White House, he has had so much dirt come out. So much. And as we think about, this is the leader of our country. This is the leader of one of the powerhouses of the world. And people not only voted him in for all the shit that he's done, but they idolize him for all the shit that he's done. That is scary from a just base level humanity. That is scary.
And people make compilation TikToks of like his mug shot,
yes.
and like him fake working at McDonald's, yes. and him like pushing other world leaders when he goes to like to some big thing in like Europe and stuff, and like people think that that's cool. And
yes.
I'll see in the comments they'll be like 1,000 points for Aura, like 1,000. Like I'm like, bro, like this ain't. this ain't a joke. Like this
Yeah.
is this guy has like can push a button for like nuclear, issues around the world, and like he can piss people off that can hurt us in the future. Once he's gone, and who knows, he might try to extend his presidency. He might try to change things in the Constitution, and that's scary to think about. And there's just so many different things like with the whole Project 2025. And I want to ask you about this, Dr. Campos, because throughout the election, that was something that Democrats kind of were pushing and saying, like, if you elect Trump, this Project 2025 thing is going to go into effect because it was created by people that were part of his administration before. How do you feel about that now? Like, do you feel that some of those things in Project 2025 are going to try to be implemented by Trump and his administration?
Mm-hmm. I think he has a strong possibility of being able to change a lot of policy because the House and the Senate also are
controlled by Republicans now.
Are controlled by Republicans. He presumably he'll be able to replace 2 more Supreme Court justices. And then we'll have a 7-2 Supreme Court, primarily leaning conservative. And so, if you just kind of think about it like from a bird's eye right view, like typically, even if the president is a Republican, we have these other institutions in place like Congress and the courts to act as a check on the president so that way they can't make sweeping policy changes that are primarily conservative. But now you have a conservative president, you have a conservative Congress, and you have a presumably conservative court system. Mm-hmm. And so anything that would have been perhaps a check on the president or a check on Congress or vice versa is no longer there. And that's kind of what, when people say like it is a threat to our democracy, it's a threat in that when we think about our democratic institutions, it is this sort of balance of power and this system of checks and balances that presumably won't be as strong under this new administration. And so I think it is a possibility that some of those policies will advance. It'll probably be up to the states and some of those, state legislators to also kind of act as a check. And because we have like a federalist system too, that will also change whether or not some of these things will become federalized. But I don't know. Yeah.
I wanted to tackle like Latinos that have supported Trump, and I'm guessing because in my social media I have like about 3 or 4 of them that are just constant like sharing stuff, but they never share like policy. It's always just like the Trump mugshot.
Well, I just wanted to go on that and be like, I mean, and I think that's how the Republican ones. First of all, they had their guy picked like 5 years ago. They knew who was running, and everybody in that party knew who the fuck was running. That's why everybody obeyed. Trump was over here sitting at Mar-a-Lago like, don't pass that bill. He showed who the leader was there. So he did that. And then, he would just go on and talk, say anything. Oh, I'm going to fix the border. How are you going to do it? Well, first of all, let's talk about Sleepy Joe, okay? Like, let's talk about Camila. She's a smart woman. He would say that he would do the things. I can fix it. I can do it. I'm going to fix everything. How? That's not important right now. The important thing is that this person is not smart.
Miggs, I went to a workshop at my job before, and they had this phrase of confidence over competence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's Trump.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, like, they don't care about policy. They just kind of want, oh, so you're going to take care of me? All right, cool. Like, Like,
which is something worth talking about because, I think my politics are driven by it's not really about me. Like, I don't think to myself like what can best help me. I'm always thinking about like I already feel like I'm a little privileged just being a U.S. citizen, having that privilege myself. So I'm always like, what president or like what politician can help the majority of the people, specifically people that are struggling with resources and stuff.
What's interesting there is that it's all about perspective. And I feel some major topic that we haven't talked about yet that answers, to an extent, I think why Latino voters are also really supporting Trump, religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like old religion. Latinos, yeah.
Yes. So if to your point,
Jesus was an immigrant. Anyway.
To your point, if let's say I have the same mentality of you, right? I want to help the better good. That could look so different to me. That is, maybe I am deeply rooted in religion versus you. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, like, Republicans in general tend to be more anchored in that, which, in my opinion, it's not where the government should be playing, right? But Latinos in general tend to be a lot more heavy in religion, so those heavy topics, they're going to lean there. And they're not going to, it's difficult for them to see the different side, because to them, like, and my mom says it all the time, she's like, es un pecado, it's a sin. And it's perspective, right? So what you feel is helping the greater good, for them is hurting the greater good.
And I feel like they probably, when they think about helping the greater good, they think about like stopping abortion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they
That's
think
a big
that's
one.
that's pro-life. I do think that like a lot of, just based on my conversations with people, it was mostly like they thought the economy, by picking Trump, the economy was going to get better. Like that was just their mindset. Like without doing too much. And I hate when people say like do your research, because that's lazy. That's a lazy way of telling people to like go look into information. Yeah. But sometimes that information is hard to find. You know, even for me, whenever I like look up different articles on things, there's a lot of conflicting reports. So sometimes it's kind of hard for me to even make my own. So I imagine for folks that maybe don't know how to navigate the internet to that extent, how harder it is for them to realize that the economy doesn't work the way that they think it does. You know, they don't think about like a president comes in and takes on the economy of the president before, or how or when the economy actually shifts based on the policy of this president. But I think you were going to say something, Dr. Campos.
No, I think Gabby's right. There has been a shift in like also evangelicalism. It's not even Catholicism at this point either. A lot of Latinos are evangelical Christians, and evangelical Christians are like 90% supporting Republican candidates across the board. So, and what's changed too is that a lot of these religious institutions are telling their, people that go to their churches who to vote for, and
which they're not supposed to, huh?
Which they're not supposed to, but they're doing, even if they don't say it explicitly, they're saying, right, like, this is a sin, this is, and the candidate that is endorsing these things is obviously not aligned with God or Jesus or et cetera. And so, I think part of it is religion, part of it, like you said, is economy. It's kind of on my earlier point. People use like eggs and gas as like a heuristic, right? Like, oh, my eggs are like 50 cents more expensive than they were 4 years ago. So clearly that's the president's fault. And so I'm going to vote for somebody else. And it's so funny because I've seen like a lot of ads where people are like, I'll pay for your 40-cent difference. I would have paid for your 40-cent difference.
I see sometimes people be like, oh, like I went to go put gas. It was like $80. I'm like, what kind of car are you driving? Because I just filled my tank up for $24. Like, do you have a big old truck that's expensive? Is that what you're...
Hold on. What kind of puny car are you driving?
A Honda. Honda Civic. 2016. But yeah, like I feel with... Going back to the whole Latinos that have supported Trump.
I just wanted to say about the evangelical thing.
You keep on interrupting me, so I'm wondering, are you scared of me mentioning something about Latinos for Trump, or what's going on, Miggs?
No, I was talking about religion, and I remember, this wasn't here recently, but it was when Trump was president the last time. I would have work down in Fort Smith, and then every once in a while I would put it into like the AM like Christian stations or whatever, and I would drive around and just listen to that. And
K-Love.
I don't know what it is down there, but I mean it was it was there was hours and hours. It was like 3-hour shows on like Trump pretty much, and then everything that he would say, like, that is what he said, but that's not what he meant. Now let's go into what he really meant, and then they would like,
oh wow,
like
there's been
change it around. Whatever he said wasn't what he really said. What he said really was whatever God wanted.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And like they would turn it around.
There's been a lot of like, him being also like the attempted assassinations of him as well didn't really help. But like, like people will make him into like almost like
martyr?
A martyr, and then they like edit him as like a Jesus. I
love that picture where like Jesus is behind him.
Yeah, yes,
and, like,
and so I think it is like
so
like
gross.
it's. But also, I mean, part of that, if you had to put it in a Venn diagram, a lot of it's misinformation, right? It's just people just don't. Facebook is one of those places, of course, that harbors a lot of misinformation. WhatsApp too is like really, really hard to stop the spread of misinformation. You can just forward a bunch of links and like all these long chains of information. A lot of Latino folks use WhatsApp as like their main communication tool, it's largely unfiltered. I mean, some other social media platforms now have tried to kind of, you know, they have those little like, oh, this is actually not correct information. How do you do that on an app like WhatsApp? Like, how do you stop the spread of misinformation through other avenues that a large Latino community is using? So I don't know.
I do want to talk, going back to the
Latino vote.
Yeah.
He's like, focus.
Miggs, do you have anything to say before I bring it up?
No, you just kept moving faster. Like, hold on, I got something to say about that shit.
Okay, so
sorry, I also drank I'm drinking a Monster right
you're
now.
on fire right now.
Anda al 100.
I've never seen you this fired up before, but I guess the first part of the question was, I wanted to ask you, before the election, when you're seeing people on your social media, specifically Latino men, that will post about Trump, how does that make you feel?
Didn't see it. I don't have any Latinos
for
for Trump.
But maybe
I keep a tight circle.
Maybe you followed them, but you deleted them eventually or unfollowed them, right?
No, never.
Never?
No.
I had one on Facebook, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, whoop, this guy's got to go. And I think about the personality, because here's another thing about the Latino culture: machismo. So imagine you're a Latino man that is used to, basically expects a woman to be in the kitchen and taking care of the household. Like, my saying that honestly pisses me off probably the most growing up, calladita te ves más bonita. And they see this incredible, empowering woman. That's a risk to them. That's a risk to their lifestyle of them being able to do this and get away with it, and nothing else is expected from them. Nothing else is expected from them. So I do think, and maybe this is also me drawing my own conclusions, I do think there was a level of deep, deep, deep sexism with the Latino vote too.
I can feel that. I still follow like one or two people that maybe don't have the best political opinions that are local, and I think like part of me doesn't want to give up on them. Like, I want to reform them eventually. I want them to see my content and maybe
I love your optimism.
eventually be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't think this way. You know, specifically now with like what's going on with like immigration, I want to be like, look, this is kind of what's happening. But I know it's not black and white. Dr. Campos, you've pointed that out to me before. Can you talk about that? Can you talk about like why Latinos for Trump is not a black and white thing like people think? Yeah,
I think partially, right, as people have said online and other places as well, is that, the way that we understand Latinidad and Latino is a social construct, right? Like, we have decided what are these necessary and sufficient conditions for people to be Latino. And because we have created this category, we have expectations about people in those groups, right? If you say you're Latino, you should be behaving this way and you should be supporting candidates in this way. That's the first mistake. We have these expectations about how Latinos should behave. And that was a concept that we kind of we chalked up with in the 1960s in order to better understand some of the issues that Latinos were facing in the U.S., but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden it created this shared consciousness where we all care about each other and we have this group consciousness, linked fate, etc., in the same way that we've seen with other groups. And also early on, Latinos we're geographically spread quite far from one another. There's a large group in the beginning in California, New York, and in Florida, all with different cultures, different histories, especially related to politics and stuff. And so for us to expect that they all will share similar opinions based on an issue is slightly, it's misleading to us, because it will lead to these confusions that we see every election cycle, right? And honestly, Latinos have been kind of split for a long time. It's not like it's a rather new thing. I think partially we expect that they will support a Democratic candidate because they care about social issues related to Latinos, and typically don't take such a strong anti-immigrant stance like other candidates do. And so we've used immigration as kind of like a heuristic too, to be like, oh, well, Latinos should care about Democrats or should support Democrats because they're immigrants. Not a lot of Latinos are immigrants anymore either, right? A lot of Latinos are generations removed from their immigrant history.
And then the Democratic Party has record numbers of sending them back, you know?
Yes, exactly. Obama had record numbers of deportations.
So did Sleepy Joe, baby.
Yeah, so it's, and they have also failed to pass policy that they had promised, right? The DREAM Act failed. And that creates a lot of apathy towards these candidates because it's to Mig's earlier point, right? It's a lot of things that don't happen, right? It's just like slow moving for the Democrats sometimes. And then the generations removed. Also, the belief, too, I think a lot of Latinos have this belief of, like, the American dream, right? And the American dream is anyone can achieve the American dream. You just have to work hard enough, baby. Why are you not working hard enough? That's your own fault.
And love the flag. Love the flag, too.
Love the flag. Let's merge the Mexican and American flag together in one big mega flag, you know? And we came here to achieve the American dream. If you haven't done it, it's because you haven't done it right. And I think that sometimes the Republican Party can really appeal to that. Again, to my earlier point, right? Like, oh, Trump is like a he's in Elon Musk and all these other like billionaires. Like, that's what we want to be. We want, and Latino men, right, too, like this idea of like the, what's it called? The entrepreneur and like, like the entrepreneurship, like I'm going to like put my boots on, I'm going to go to work and like, I'm going to succeed. And I think that, so, if you take all of that into consideration, of course it makes sense that Latino men are going to vote for a Republican candidate who is saying like, oh, you don't need to care, you don't need to worry about your race and ethnicity. Those are non-issues. We're going to talk about the economy, and I'm going to help you achieve the American dream that you've been, that your ancestors have been like pushing you towards.
I never even thought about that, but like, I'm not blaming our parents, but a lot of our parents have put that mentality for us of like, be a hard worker.
Yeah.
So like that kind of evolved, and I can see how like Latinos would go to like a Trump and be like, oh, this guy's telling me that if I work hard, I can be like him. I can be like Elon Musk.
And you know what's scary is that's not enough. Like, at least in the business world, being a hard worker is not enough. And we as Latinos, that's one of the things that are holding us back. That we go in this career field thinking and, coming out of an upbringing of work hard, God's going to give you everything you need. You just got to work hard, right? That's not true. God's not going to do that. It takes so much more than that.
There's
right?
a lot of factors.
Oh my gosh, so many. And it goes back.
The harder you work, the less you get paid.
And it goes back to what I said earlier: confidence over competence. And unfortunately, and I think to me, this would be the call to action to everyone. We have got to step up. We have got to use our voice every day in our everyday life. This isn't a political thing at this point. This is speak up and yes, work hard, be the best that you can be in whatever role you're doing, whether that's in business, in the medical field, in education, XYZ, it does not matter. But I feel like as we think about how can we make sure this doesn't happen again, we have got to start in our everyday job. And ultimately, money makes the world go round. Business had a massive impact. And the economy had a massive impact. Like, as you go home, as we go into the office or the hospital or wherever we work on Monday, think through that. Think through how can I make sure that my voice, and not necessarily my voice as a Latina, my voice as a professional is heard so that we can climb those ladders to be in influential roles, so that we can be in the conversations that matter, to push on topics that matter where it matters. We need to be at the tables. And right now, unfortunately, because we have this mentality of if I work hard, that's enough, it's not enough.
And it's not enough also in the sense where like maybe we help ourselves, right? But what about the other people? Like, do we not have empathy for other people that are still struggling, that don't have, maybe they don't have the privilege to think like, if I work hard, like I'm gonna follow the American dream and achieve it. Like a lot of our parents didn't have that, right?
And they don't know what they don't know.
Like our parents were just trying to survive, and we're trying to make sure that we had a better future. And like we have more of a privilege of being able to think in a bigger mindset, I guess.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so I kind of want to ask y'all about y'all's parents. What do your parents think right now? What's going through their mind?
My mom proudly voted for Kamala. First time voting this year. She became a citizen. She voted. All the poll workers came out and they clapped for her, and then she got out of the poll and she was like, Kamala. And she's very upset right now. She was very excited last week, and I was very happy for her. But and my dad is still a legal permanent resident. But even him, like, he's very if he would have been a citizen, he would have voted for Kamala too, I think. And they've always been very, I think, liberal, socially liberal.
Mm-hmm.
I think they still fall into this like entrepreneurship and like working hard and, narrative. But I think at the end of the day, partially I'm sure it's because I'm annoying and I've talked to them my entire life about politics and
not annoying,
persistent, and my sister as well, and even my brother. I mean, like we are very like, I think just even having those conversations. I've talked to like others about like these uncomfortable conversations, and sometimes like people just don't want to talk about politics, right? Like it just makes people uncomfortable, and it's something that people say all the time, like, oh, in the dinner table we don't talk about politics, religion, and something else, I can't remember, money. And so if you're not even having those conversations, like there's no way to like parse out like what is it that we don't agree on, and how do we kind of come to a compromise, or how do we correct information when you can't even have those conversations. But I think we've been really open about it. But yes, I do feel for my mom though, because I think she's been very sad since the election. It's the first time she's ever voted, and so for it to not like have been the outcome that she had hoped, I think she feels very disillusioned by it, and so but I've told her, animo, it'll be okay. Like, luckily, again, like we are very lucky in our family because all of us have now have some sort of permanent status in the U.S. And in 2016, that wasn't the case. So, of course, like even that's part of the reason why I think for me it has also been a little bit of a mentality change, because I feel like I don't have to worry specifically about my immediate family in that way. And I can, shift focus and try to help the community more this time around.
That makes sense. What about your family, Gabby?
Scary how similar it is, but very similar. So my dad's still a permanent resident, and that's that man. Oh man, we'll come back to my dad. But my mom, it's her second election that she's voted in, and honestly, she was more hyped up than me. She's like, "Have you gone to vote? Go vote." Elwin and I, her husband, we just went. You gotta go. I'm like, "Okay, Mama, I'll go. I promise you'll find some time. Like it's gonna get done." But I love and honestly, the growth that I've seen in my mom, I'm so proud. Like I'm so proud, and I think it goes back to being educated, but also looking at within yourself and saying, what am I doing to show, to your point, those around me that this is possible, that we deserve better, that we can do better, and there's so much more out there. And as we think about it from like a basic human need, right, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like a lot of where we lost is people just want food. They want money for food, right? And a lot of us are beyond food. Like I'm so grateful to be in a position where I don't have to think about food. Like if I want to go and get Chipotle on a random Tuesday, like I know I can afford that, even though it's like $20 for a bowl, right?
Yeah. No, Cava, I don't know. Cava's a little expensive.
Oh, I love Cava. Love Cava. Anywho, that would never be a thing with my mom. Even now, she cannot. Like she has to really, truly budget. And to that extent, like I get it. And if we think about empathizing with others, right? Like I get it. If my number one concern was just feeding myself or feeding my family, and I felt that was at risk, like I get it, right? And I'm thankful, and I do know that a lot of us are in a position where we're not just looking at food or shelter. We want to do more, and we know that we deserve more, right? So I've seen that growth and just education with my mom, and I'm just so proud of her. And I haven't been able to talk to her since the election happened to kind of get her feelings and see what she's thinking. But unfortunately, like not my immediate family, we're good, but not all my family here, right? And there's still a lot of unknowns of what could happen, and it's scary. The unknown is scary. Now my dad, that man, if I'm honest, like he probably, if he could vote, he probably might vote for Trump. And he is 100% one of those Latinos that gets his education or gets his information from social media. Like that man lives on TikTok, and he's like, have you seen this? Have you seen that? I'm like, Dad, that makes zero sense. Like, are you hearing what you're saying?
It's that algorithm.
And then these videos, they pop up, and immediately, like just by looking at him, like we could tell that shit looks fake as shit.
Yeah.
Like, look at this. I was like, dude, that's Like, can you not tell that that's fake?
Like he's in there. He has like all these crazy conspiracy theories, and like it's a lot. Like I've gotten to the point where I kind of just ignore him because I'm like, Dad, like I love you, but you're batshit crazy.
Latinos love magical realism.
Yeah,
That's tough though, because like, how do you even? No, obviously you probably didn't tell him that he was batshit crazy, but like, how do you even have that conversation with him, knowing that like what he's looking at is like.
I'm stubborn, and I probably get my stubbornness from him. So I still try to rationalize things with him. Like I'm a very rational person as it is. So I try to break it down for him. Like, Dad, you're saying this. Can we think through 1, 2, 3? You're saying that. Does that still make sense? And then I love his response. More often than not, he's like, well, that's what's on TikTok. Father of mine, please.
At least lie to me and tell me you read it somewhere.
I know.
Tell me you did your research, please.
Oh my goodness.
How about your family, Miggs?
I guess my family was definitely affected for this election. I mean, everyone's legal, so I think they're good on that aspect. But my dad, Democrat through and through. But my mom, she's a little Republican, bro. Which I don't mind. I mean, whatever floats her vote, and I get it. Like,
what is she looking at?
She is like old school conservative.
Like
she is that person.
Like
yeah.
Catholic, super like in quotations pro-life.
Pro-life, all the conservative stuff. She is old school for it, And also she's retired, so she's on a fixed income.
Oh.
And then so her thing was really like you just don't understand how hard it is to get groceries. I only get like so much a month, and I'm supposed to like live off that. And I'm like, well, that is crazy because every time, and I live by myself. Every time I go to shop, it's like $300. Like, so I can only imagine like
it's those steaks, Megs.
how it would be.
That's why I
for
get
her.
groceries at my parents' house.
Yeah, it's because I only get like every 2 weeks and a half. So when I need stuff, I need stuff. But so her thing was, like I can't afford the groceries, and now, and she sees the government not helping her out, and then I know that Camilla said that she's gonna fix it now, but they didn't fix it back then, and that's kind of what I'm telling you. Like they're slow, they should have made sure they had their votes fucking taken care of. But I
wonder what she would think that Trump would do though to like fix her situation.
Yeah, I know. Well, she's like I said, she's also very like pro like corporation. Like in her mind, corporations like feed you. She always said like something about a faucet, like a slow drip is better than no drip. So she's always been a hard worker. Always, I remember getting mad at her when I was growing up because she would be like, oh no, you just need to like get a job with like, well, this is actually after when I moved here, you need to get like a job with Tyson and like be a supervisor there because you speak like 2 languages and you'd be blah blah. I'm like, Mom, you're telling me to go work for Tyson. Like I would think that you would have better expectations.
Bigger dreams, yeah.
Yeah, like maybe a doctor or a lawyer.
It's Tyson plants for you.
Yeah. But I mean, luckily, I've gotten to the point where like I've proven her wrong, and now she's kind of proud of what I do, and now my cousin can be a photographer, and she gets no hassle.
It's always the first one that gets all the shit.
But yeah, no, I mean I completely understand her, and I mean. Yeah.
My parents, my mom and my stepfather, they just believe everything I say, right? So if I tell them like this is how it is, they'll just be like, yeah. So my stepfather would be like, voy a votar contra Trump. That was his thing, right?
Yeah.
But then when we went to go vote, he was like trolling me, and he was like, voy a votar por Trump. And I'm like, no, you're not. I'll leave you here. I won't take you home. You're staying here. You'll get to get an Uber or something.
You can walk home.
For real. But my whole family is super progressive leaning. So I don't have, in my immediate family, I do have some cousins that are Trump supporters.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of family that's Trumpy.
And there was even one time, which I won't say my cousin's name because I don't want to put him on the spot, but one time I saw him at a store and I was like, hey, are you going to go vote? This was 2016. And he was like, yeah, but you're not going to like who I'm going to vote for. And I'm like, why you gotta say that? Like, yo, like, I understand, but I feel like you don't understand because we need to talk about, how this is not only going to affect you, but how it's going to affect our community. At that time, my wife was undocumented, how that's going to affect my wife. Because people don't think about other people. They're just kind of concerned about what's going to be best for them, what's going to be best for like their stock that they have. That seems to be something for like young Latinos. They're worried about stock. It's not like they have a lot of money in stock, but they have some money in stock and they just want that to like flourish and stuff. So I can't really blame people. It's just frustrating. I'm just frustrated right now. And I don't blame, once again, Latinos are not the biggest part of the electorate.
Yeah.
White folks are.
Yes.
So don't blame us
But
why Kamala lost.
But I guess not many voters turned out, but the ones that did, I mean, they turned out for Trump, and it didn't matter what they were. Black guys, Mexican guys, Mexican women. Actually,
the majority of Latinos voted for Kamala, though.
Black women was probably the only one that didn't, give it completely up.
hit us with the data, Dr. Campos.
I was that was the thing I was annoyed about on Wednesday. I saw like 10 videos. It was like 60% Latinos voted for Trump. I was like, I saw one go 68. My mom texted me like an hour later, like 68% Latino. I'm like, where are these numbers coming from? Who came up with these? I checked so many exit poll data. I was checking like I'm like in the Latinos and political science group chat. I was like, guys, have y'all seen this number anywhere? I need to figure out where this number originated from. They're like, no, haven't seen the number. I think it was maybe like a county or something somewhere. And I was like, how did this become a nationwide support? I was like,
it might have been that, or it might have been Polymarket, which is a betting website that people were using as like a poll. Like there was a thing where like Trump had like 80%, like that he was going to win, and Kamala had 20%. And people were sharing that as a poll, even though it's a betting website.
I was like, where is this? So anyways, I just got irritated. I was like, I'm going to clarify information because it's not true. A majority did. It was like 54% voted for Kamala, and, the other half voted for Trump. When you parse those out by, we've gotten data now too on like by country of origin. I think it was like a majority except for Cubans voted for Kamala as well, which is, slightly to be expected. We still don't know about like whether or not they're first time voters or, generations. We don't know the immigration, story yet. We don't know the age yet. Of course, once you start parsing it out too, you'll start to see more of those differences when you divide up the Latino, subgroup. And then, of course, we know that Latino men supported Trump more.
Why are you pointing at me?
I saw his ballot. You're right.
Show me your ballot.
I can show you my ballot.
But, when you start to parse out these differences, and if you look at these, like, battleground states, right, like a 1% shift in Latino vote was, like, the equivalent of, like, a 20% shift in white voters. And so, like, of course, like, sure, there was a slight move in Latino voters, but it's nothing compared to the shift in white voters, and they make up the majority of the electorate. In almost every election cycle, white voters outpace Latino voters by like 10 to 20 percentage points. And so we make up a very small majority of the electorate, right?
See, I think that's what we need. I mean, I remember like being in LA, like in elementary, and they would come in my class and be like, "You're the sleeping giant."
Yeah.
And
the sleeping giant?
Yeah.
We've never woken up. We've still been sleeping.
Because we're huge. But I mean, that goes back to the question I was going to ask you, and I'll start with myself. Like, do your homies vote? And for me, the majority, no. And they have different excuses whether it doesn't count, it's already rigged, and all that stuff. But I mean, if I asked like 90% of like my closest peeps, they probably don't vote. Maybe the Trumpers do.
my homies do vote.
Yeah.
A lot of them aren't documented, so they can't, right? But the ones that can, I feel, do show up. Yeah. Honestly, my circle is like people that care about their community. I just can't vibe with people that don't care. Like I've tried to hang out with people that are in their own world sometimes and like don't care about other people, and that's just not for me. So for the most part, my people are focused on voting and helping out their community.
Gabby, your homies?
My homies did vote, but I actually have a question for you, Miggs. How do you feel about your homies and
not
their
voting?
stance?
I mean, it's just kind of disappointing. It's kind of disappointing that, I mean, I can come over here with all that data in the world telling them this is important, and they just be like, nah.
I think it's, I think it's important to understand that they feel like they're being rational. I think that's okay. Like, when I teach on the like electoral college in my class, like half of my students are like, why am I voting then? I'm like, I'm not telling you about the electoral college so you feel like you can't vote anymore, but I'm just telling you how it is. I think people do start to gain they start to feel this perspective of like, well, my individual vote is not going to matter to the outcome.
Especially here in Arkansas.
In Arkansas. What I try to do too is like just tell them, you're not just voting for the president. A lot of people did vote this election and they abstained from voting for the presidential ticket, or they voted third party. And, I empathize with those people too, because obviously they feel a lot of, again, like the Democratic Party has not mobilized their base, and they've tried to pander towards these like centrists. And so when you do that, like, of course you're going to lose some of your base. But people, I think, are misinformed of the fact that there are local elections that are happening too. Diana only won her seat by like, I think 100 votes. I thought I saw that, or not even 100. Wow. I think like less than that. Yeah. And
Vladimir Lopez
won by like 10, I think.
11
wow.
votes.
11 votes. And so,
see, you guys hear that? Your vote matters.
And so for local elections, your individual vote does matter to the outcome of the elections. I just think that it's hard to imagine that for, the national, like these higher, so.
I love that. I think that's very powerful, and I hope those that are listening take that as a clear call to action for any and all elections going forward.
So I think the early voting, I think, was like by 100 difference. I think for Diana Gonzalez-Worden, I think it was like 600 votes that she won at the end.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at the history of Springdale, right? Vladimir won by 11 votes this election cycle.
That's crazy.
Megan Godfrey, when she won in 2018, she won by like 37 votes.
Wow.
So that's why. That's one of the things I always tell people when I go knock on doors. I'm like, yes, I get it. This is not even a red state. It's a non-voting state. Arkansas is. Like Arkansas, people are just not voting based on like how much big the population is that can vote. But if you focus more on locally, like your vote is making a difference. Like there's evidence showing that by dozens of votes, this election was won. For example, I know people are probably tired of hearing this from me, but we know with Megan, she won by 37 votes. And then she helped pass legislation that helped documented students have access to in-state tuition, and then also for them to be able to get licenses to be nurses and to be teachers. So there is evidence that some change was done by these little votes that won. And that's kind of what I feel gets people motivated to participate in the voting process, because telling them about president and them knowing that this is a non-voting state and that it's going to go Republican, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Miggs, tell your friends.
Sometimes there are ballot issues also usually on elections as well, and like those affect your immediate
and those can be confusing as well.
Those can be confusing. And like
this casino one on issue 2 was confusing.
I was so confused too.
It was like, so wait, if I vote against it, then they do get the casino, right?
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Right?
And then the marijuana one was like not even a real one. It wasn't even going to be on the ballot, really.
The Supreme Court ruled that they weren't going to count the votes on it the day that early voting started. Yeah,
so it was just
but it was too late to remove the ballot issue off of the ballots that had been printed.
So going forward now, okay, we have a Trump presidency. Can you all give, or if some like words of like maybe not motivation, but some words of maybe affirmation
maybe both
to people that
maybe
are
all
listening, of like just maybe in your own worlds, because I know you both live in different worlds in regards to, you're in the business world, you're in the education world. What do you think people want to hear, specifically Latino people, about how to move forward? I'll have my input after both of you, but I just kind of want to hear from you what you're thinking right now, like moving forward. How should we I guess motivate people?
I can go first, and I'll reiterate what I said earlier. Control your controllables, right? And at the end of the day, we need to come together and look inwardly on what can I do in my everyday to make a difference. And in my career specifically, there's really 2 ways to do it. Like, one is, again, be the best that you can in your job, network, get visibility, let your voice be heard, and go up to the positions that drive impact. And like the organization I work for is massive. Like, they have influence. I know at my level, I have influence not a large degree, but we have influence. So leveraging that, one, knowing that, being mindful of that, and leveraging that intentionally in my everyday. The other way is, of course, there are in most organizations like Associate Resource Group or, that DE&I effort. Get involved. Like, and I am big on let's show the numbers, let's show the data so that those that do make decisions understand why it matters. Like, level set on the reasons to believe and why it's good for business. Like, at the end of the day, like, at its core, and I think at its most simplicity, like, this was a money thing. This was a money thing, and money makes the world go round. Like, I think about even my life decisions. Like, honestly, I'm in business because I was very mindful of that. That if I wanted to drive difference, make a difference, it's going to take money. And I don't disagree with your mom, Miggs, of like, the corporations do control a lot more probably than we think they do. So all that to say, for those that are listening, think through what are ways that you can get in a position of influence, and in your day-to-day now, use your voice. And it doesn't have to be a political voice. It can just be make sure that your voice is being heard in X project or Y topic, and bust through the barriers. Like, I think about me specifically as a Latina, we are the most underrepresented in business. We have the biggest challenge in terms of breaking through that managerial rung. The broken rung is what it's called. And a lot of that is because of our upbringing, right? Like, we're so used to being work hard, be humilde, eat. Yeah, and it's going to happen for you. Be humilde, be humilde. In my profession, you cannot be humble. Like, you need to, of course, play the system, but you have to speak up. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how well you're doing. If people don't know about it, you're never going to be recognized. And I also feel that we need to not be afraid as Latinas to step up and be a leader. That doesn't mean that. Another big one that I hate is like this idea of, and I feel, again, I love my mom. I love my parents. Being told, no seas ambiciosa. I've been told that. And as I think about my career and my education, very similar to what Mick said earlier, of both my parents were like, it first started with, you're going to graduate from high school, ¿qué más quieres? I'm like, are you kidding me? You really think that's all I'm capable of? You're insane. Like, I'm like, one, it was so disheartening because I'm like, I am working my ass off in high school because I want to get an education beyond that. But it was that, they didn't know what they didn't know, and they didn't believe it. They didn't think it was possible until they saw it. So I got my undergrad. And even then, I remember it was like, it was yesterday, my mom was like, ahora ya sí, ¿verdad? ¿Pa qué quieres maestría? No necesitas eso. Eso no necesitas. Ya es hora que tengas hijos. Porque no tener hijos es un pecado. I kid you not, my mom and my grandma have both told me that at least 2 or 3 times at this point. I love y'all. I love them. But they really, truly think that. Like, it's instilled in them. And, like, again, they've been seeing through my journey why I was driving the decisions that I was driving, and, like, that it was intentional. And, like, now that I recently got a divorce, like, my mom understood. She was like, oh, okay. Like, thank goodness you don't have kids. And I'm like, see, I told you, like, you got to be, it's not just about bringing children to the world. Like, it needs to be a strong family, a strong household, right? And she knew, like, I had told her, I was like, I don't want my kids to grow up the way that I grew up, because I grew up a split parent household, right? Like, that's not the best experience. Like, not like, again, like, I'm very grateful for where I'm at, but it was challenging. It was challenging growing up. And it was really challenging to an extent, like, constantly be having to, quite honestly, fight with my mom and dad to achieve more. Most people out there don't do that. Like, if anything, they have very supportive parents that, like, that's their fuel. But that was my experience. And I'm not saying that that's everybody's experience, but and my mom and dad being that perfect example of, like, as they saw what I was achieving, they were like, holy smokes, it's possible. We deserve more. And I think that's the call to action here. Like, we deserve more, and let's show others that we can be there, that we are there.
Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Dr. Campos?
Man, I don't know.
You're a realist. I know what you're about to say. It's probably going to be like...
I'm not a realist. I'm just, I think, and I've said this before, like, I think it's hard because I think I'm older now, too. Like, it's just, as 2016 me was distraught. She was sad, frustrated, angry, and I think now I feel more motivated to Gabby's point to control what I can control, like to control the controllables. And for me, that's being a resource on campus, that's being a resource to the community, being a resource to my parents, and advocating for things that I know are going to disproportionately affect my community and my students on campus. And I think that's what I can control, and that's what I'm going to try to do. And also just, tell folks to be more... to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think, again, part of the issue is that we just don't want to talk about politics. We don't want to engage in it. We want to see the TikTok video that's easy to kind of grasp our attention and use that as our information, as our tools of information. But, and even like as the receivers of that, like if your parents are showing you something that's like completely wrong, just, Gabby's already doing the work, and we can all do that work too, not to just kind of dismiss them. And I'm like, also like at fault of this too. Sometimes I just don't even open the TikTok. I'm like, I'm not gonna open this because I know it's gonna be something. But you know what? Maybe I should, and be like uncomfortable with just sitting and having to like. And not everyone needs to do that either, right? Because that takes a lot of your own like mental capacity to do all of that. And I'm not saying everybody needs to do that, but do it with your mom. Just do it with your mom, or just do it with your dad, or just do it with a sibling or a cousin, one person. And I'm not saying that you're going to change their mind, but at least they will have better tools to inform themselves in the future, and maybe they will make different decisions. And it's not your responsibility to change their mind about something, but it could be your responsibility just to make sure that they're not, spreading a conspiracy theory.
Taking ivermectin or something like that. What about you, Miggs? Any final thoughts?
No.
How you feeling?
What do you mean, no?
I respect that.
You're like, let's wrap it up.
I respect that.
He's like, I'm hungry. I'm ready for lunch.
Yeah, no, sometimes you see, like, people looking at this kind of information. And then, like, I like to test, like, the waters. I like to see, like, okay, so how far are you into this? And then kind of being like, oh, okay.
You're too far gone.
Yeah.
I don't got time for this.
Anyway, so how about them Dodgers?
For me, I challenge the young Trump supporters or Latinos to get involved in their community. I feel like you'll have a whole different perspective of life if you start getting involved a little bit more with issues that are happening locally, if you have conversations with the person that's part of the LGBTQ or someone that's trans, because I see a lot of also transphobia on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and it's coming from Latinos a lot of the times. So I just challenge you to just get involved and put yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's kind of like my motto. My motto is always like, to grow, you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and I've done that too, and I've seen my growth in different things. So I'm telling you this from experience, and then I just want my community to be more united and organized, because we're going to need that. Like, we're going to have to be on the defensive for the immigrant community at the moment. So I really want to get back to organizing, with a lot of the Latino leaders here locally and figure out ways to like create a plan for if shit does go down, because there's plans right now from the administration of denaturalizing citizens that were undocumented. There's plans to
remove birthright citizenship.
Yeah, and then there's no proof on this, but Arkansas is about to. They're probably going to end up approving it, of creating a new prison here in Franklin County in Arkansas. That I believe it's going to be worth like $272 million. I believe in Franklin County, and there's already people spreading rumors, which there's not proof on this, but people are spreading rumors that like it's going to be a place where people that are undocumented will be sent.
Oh gosh!
And there's
they will get their sex changes in the prison there as well.
Correct. In Kamala's last month, apparently. So there's all these things happening. So I just want people to be alert, at the end of this month, we're going to, on December 1st, we're going to have a DACA clinic here locally. And we put out the information a few days ago, and there's been a lot of people that have reached out. And one thing that's beautiful is that there's been a lot of like young white people that have reached out, and they're like, how can I help out at the DACA clinic? And I know that the majority of people are not going to be able to help us because we need people that can fill out DACA forms that can and have like history with like working at law firms and stuff like that. I'm already volunteering.
I can help.
Voluntold.
I'm gonna reach out. So it's a beautiful thing to see so many white people, reach out and want to help out, even though they don't know how to help out. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of good people in our community that are allies and that really want to protect immigrants. So I want people to know that, because sometimes I've hung out with people, like specifically Latinos, that are just very paranoid and they don't trust white people. But I can't tell you based on my experience. There's a lot of good white people out there that really want to help, immigrants.
They're not all that bad.
I just want to say, because that's a conversation I have with my wife a lot. We're like, we've known a lot of white people that are really nice and have given scholarships and have like done a lot of good things. So I just kind of want to put that out there. Why are you laughing, Dr. Campos? You're making me uncomfortable. But my call to action is just get involved in your community. Be ready to organize and just love your neighbor and do anything you can to help them, especially if you're in a privileged situation. But Dr. Campos, Gabby, thank you both for being here. I appreciate you so much. We went over the hour, and I knew that we were going to go over the hour because we're all yappers over here, and we all have stuff to say. But I think this conversation is important.
Wait. No, I'm just kidding.
and yeah, I'm just really appreciative for both of you and for taking the time. And for everybody listening, that was the end of this episode. My name is Irvin.
And I'm Miggs.
And with us was Dr. Campos and Gabby, and we're signing off.